Hello and welcome back to Taking Back Saturday, a Happy Buyers Club podcast where we break down the real estate market each and every Friday to help home buyers build confidence, follow a process, and hopefully buy really happy. I'm your host, Chase Jones, and joining me, as he does each and every week, is real estate daddy Sam Hunter. How are you, friend?
Very well, mate. Thank you for having me back again.
You're welcome. You're more than welcome. I couldn't book anyone else, and you sit next to me. So
it's the only podcast I get a regular occurrence on.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Hey, listen, we'll see if we can up the guest appearances next year.
Maybe.
Like this podcast, I had visions of this being a solo podcast.
It can be.
Okay, pipe down over there. For those that have ever seen Sam or I out on a Saturday inspecting properties on behalf of our clients, or if you are a client or a potential client, you might have seen one of these walkthrough videos.
Famed walkthrough videos. You'd hear us before you see us, I reckon.
And in hindsight, this is probably not the way everyone should do it, commentating their way around an entire house. But I wanted to do this podcast about how we inspect a property. For sure. It's not to say this is the only way to inspect a property, but this is a surefire way that nothing gets missed.
Well, hopefully nothing gets missed.
Yes, you're exactly right. Now, if you're inspecting, 2, 3, 8 properties on a Saturday, which a lot of people who are in the thick of it are doing, listen to this. Get your coffee in on a Saturday morning and listen to this podcast as a bit of a reminder of the things to look out for when you're doing that lap at home. Keeping in mind that you could potentially be offering on this property this afternoon and you've got yourself potentially a 30-minute window in which to understand as much as you possibly can about it. So you better do a good job at inspecting it. So first tip from all of us, and this is where the walkthrough fame comes from, is record everything. You don't have to commentate your way around the entire property the way that I do. And I have a very loud voice. I've got my volume turned down for the podcast. People hear me coming and they're like, oh my God,
this is that guy again.
The fool is here. We'll just follow him around and see what he thinks about this place.
It happens.
Turn your phone on the side. You want to be landscape filming just so it captures a bit more, particularly if you are trying to see where you're walking. You want to make sure you're just capturing as much as possible. Zoom out to 0.5 as well. Again, just for the sake of visibility and sort of taking in as much as you can of the surroundings. The inspection starts before you even walk in the door. Park up out the front and have a think about how was the traffic getting there? I mean, what time was it? How was the traffic getting there? How was the parking? Is it a skinny street or is it a wide street? Is there a bus stop out the front? Is there a bus stop nearby? What would weekday morning traffic potentially look like? Are you near a school zone? Thinking about the practicalities of you, your car, potentially your partner's car, your kids' cars, and how that works moving forward, super important. Step one.
I think a lot of people don't take into account the streetscape. And I mean, you have it's particularly present and prevalent at a busy open home. If you're there anywhere after 5 minutes after that open home time, chances are it's going to be a pretty full street. Like if there's 10 people in that open home, that's 10 extra cars that are going to be parked in the immediacy around that property. If you can only get one car down and one car back, that could be what life is like, particularly if you're going in the city when people are parking there. You said, is there a bus stop nearby? Is your street Mega Long Street in Holland Park where everyone parks to then get onto the busway? So there is never a street park there. And if you don't own a property on that road with 2-car garage or a driveway, you're not parking your car where you live. So taking this sort of stuff into account, again, I know it sounds pretty boring, but it does make a difference in sort of understanding what life in that neighborhood, not necessarily just that property, is going to be life for you ongoing.
And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to build a 30-minute snapshot of what life could look like here and the practicalities of it, the boringness of it, of where a car would be parked is that could be an absolute pain in the ass for the rest of your time in that property.
Sure. Are there townhouses on that street?
Neighbours in general.
I remember Chase and I, we used to live in a townhouse complex in Carina Heights, and in the 5 years that we lived there was probably 4 or 5 other townhouse complexes that got built, and that street you could not get a park anywhere, and only one car could go down that road at any one time. All that stuff makes a difference into the quality of life that you have there as well. Let's say that you are buying a townhouse and it's got one car, and suddenly you've got 2 cars in your household and you've got to find a street park. If the street parks are always full, what are you going to do? So notice that stuff even before you go on the front door.
Yeah, and I suggest doing almost 3 separate videos. If we're talking about recording everything, the first one is the street. Just do a 360 from the front of the property. Hey, what am I looking at? Like, what does the view from my front door look like? What's my neighbor across the road look like? What do my neighbors on either side look like? If you want to take a little walk up and down the street, sort of just even eye off where's the local park, or oh geez, there's 4 or 5 different townhouse complexes in my very close vicinity. But just recording it so that, again, later when you've done 8 of them in a row, you can be like, okay, right, probably didn't realize that at the time. Is that this down the road or something like that? It's all good. It's all good contextually for you and what is important to you with this purchase. So, parking, cool, great, streetscape, neighbors, neighborhood. Now, again, everyone's got different thresholds of what they think a good neighborhood looks like and feels like. So I'm going to leave that in your capable hands and your discretion. But for others...
Well left through the keeper there, my friend.
Like, oh, and there we go.
Yeah.
But listen, we work with a lot of clients, a lot of buyers that are like, hell no, that's ghetto. And that's cool. Again, that's on us to understand. But for every person and every buyer, just getting that sense for what that neighborhood is like, is this the sort of street where there'd be a Christmas party thrown every year and they shut the street off? Or is it just one where, hey, listen, we're buying in an up and comer.
We live here.
That's it. We're here. We're staying. Second video. And again, before this video starts, always go in, check yourself in with the agent, introduce yourself, and then that's when you get to work, so to speak.
I think one of the reasons why people often ask us, hey, what did you mean by that, is because every property we inspect, we technically inspect it twice at the one time. The first time you roll in, you shake hands, you do what 99% of every other buyer that's seeing it, whether it's an open home or a private inspection, is doing, and that's just a hot lap. It's a pretty meaningless walk through the house to get your bearings. It's kind of just like, that's a bedroom, that's a hallway, this is the kitchen. I go downstairs, I'm under the house. Doesn't look like there's termites. Okay, cool. Now, for most buyers, that's a Saturday. That's what you're doing 8 times. We're doing that so that when we're doing the video, we're not getting lost. Because realistically, when we are doing that video, we're no longer focused on the big picture. We're trying to understand the specifics of that property. So yeah, we call it a hot lap. It's really important. And we feel like that's what you want to do first and foremost, before then you whack your phone out, you go on 0.5 and you start then really drilling into the detail of that particular area, that particular street, that particular property, so that when you get home in the afternoon and you've had your $12.50 jug at the Holland Park Hotel, you can pull your videos out and go, what do we actually like? So the hot lap is
movie night.
The hot lap is exactly that, right? It's the walkthrough that you're probably already doing if you're listening to this show. The video walkthrough, shall we call it that? Or
sure. The first one's recon. It's just a scope out. It's just to sort of get your bearings, and then you'll be like, okay, cool. I think I understand how this floor plan looks and works. Okay, let's go and slow this down and do it properly in more detail.
It's also enough. So we've been at inspections for the first time with our clients where we've done the hot lap and they've gone, I don't even want the video. And so it gives you a chance to know, do you want to spend another, what is often for us, 7 minutes? If you think about how long 7 minutes actually is, walking through a house, that hot lap will give you an idea of whether you want to invest that time or whether you're on to the next.
Always do the video. The next video after the streetscape video is the lap of the outside. It's one of those things, guys. Wear shoes that are appropriate for like inspecting the outside of a property. It's not a fashion show. Do the power move, wear the work boots, put your thongs on, and keep them with you, because you'll want to get outside and do a full lap of the exterior of that property. You want to be checking fences. You want to be checking just the genuine exterior of the property, like the actual, like how the weatherboards look. Do they look like they're water damaged? Guttering, obviously that's a big cause of where a lot of water problems can come from. Check the fascia boards. Check Again, you don't have to be a qualified plumber to identify rust spots. If you can see sunlight,
there's a hole through that gutter, probably needs a new gutter.
Hole bad.
Yeah.
Downpipe good. And downpipes, like this is, for those that have been following along for a long time, I speak a lot about plumbing because water is a damaging force and you want to make sure that water is going where it should be going. So having a good looking gutter system that looks like it doesn't have any rust issues or holes, and downpipes that are going down into an underground system, great. On the weekend, you would have had no problems when we had a torrential downpour here in Brisbane because water was going where it needed to go to. Downpipes that drain at the foundations of a house, bad. Not good. We don't want water sitting around and potentially pooling around the outside of a home, which leads me to my next point, which is the contours of the land. As you're doing the lap of the outside, you're looking up, but you're also looking down. You want to look at just commonsensically which way the land is falling. If land is falling, towards the fences away from the property, great. Because that means that when groundwater is finding its way onto the ground, just from the rain itself,
Suck it, neighbours.
yeah, it going elsewhere. If it's going the other way, so if you've got, a house that's sitting lower than potentially where the fences are, and you've got water coming towards the property, where is it going?
You are that neighbour.
Is it sitting there and pooling, or is there strip drains? Are there stormwater pits that are designed to take that away? Again, it's just identifying it. You don't need to have all the answers. Sometimes you might have to see it when it rains to understand all this stuff, but just identifying it as a potential challenge or a risk is the most important thing.
I think one of the reasons why we're doing this, and I hope it doesn't sound like we're telling everybody who's listening to suck eggs, but this stuff is not common sense. Like, you don't know what to go and look for, particularly around water. And we live in a city that floods more often than a lot of other places, right? So we talk about water, I think probably more than anything else. It's like comparable sales, water risk management. That's probably the least sexy name for this podcast, but that is really what you got to worry about when you're buying a house, particularly in Brisbane. And knowing what a strip drain is or knowing what a stormwater pit is not common sense, right? So we want to walk you through that stuff so that you can walk around and go, okay, if it was to absolutely piss down, is the water going to come into my house? Is the water going to overflow that stormwater drain because it's not big enough? Do the gutters empty next to the property? That is the most common thing that we get asked when we're doing these videos on site, is they'll just like, what did you mean by the drain's not connected? Because we're saying it into a phone so that our clients can hear it, and then we go and explain it to somebody else, and they're like, oh, I didn't realize that. And you know what? If it's not connected and it doesn't rain that much, it's not that big of a problem. But it is something that over time, if left unattended, could give massive problems and just incur massive costs. And it's just not worth not knowing about before you decide to take that risk on and to manage it over
For sure. And like, that's it. Like, at a very high level, like, these can be structural issues. And like, again, we don't need to like, bring out the red flag brigade. But that stuff can be a huge cost in the long run. In the day to day, groundwater can just be really inconvenient. Imagine you always have a wet yard and you're constantly having a sludgy underfoot, unable to mow yard, just because groundwater isn't mitigated in the right way. Something to keep in mind. Aspect. Sam's the king of aspect. He loves this. I wear an Apple Watch, which I have a compass on. So my videos tend to slow up at a little point in time because I'm like, and this is north to the front. It's about just knowing where the sun rises, where it sets, and what rooms that affects.
For sure.
It doesn't need to be the be-all, end-all. Obviously there's ideal aspects. It's lovely to have, northern aspects on to the rear, potentially a rear entertainment area, potentially your master suite, just nice, gentle light throughout the day. It's not the end of the world. What you do want to understand, though, is if you've got potentially where the west is facing, and whether those are bedrooms or potentially living areas where you're like, oh man, it's every afternoon we're going to be shutting the curtains.
So 3 months a year, it's unbearable for 3 hours.
Yep.
And that's like, I think north, south, east in Brisbane doesn't really matter. Like, in most of our months, the sun is pretty high. So in the winter months, you're still going to get a lot of light. Particularly even if you face south with your outdoor area, if you can have side windows, you're going to get enough light that you don't need the lights on in the daytime. It's not the same as southern states. That northern aspect is lovely. But it still gets pretty warm in most of the year. Even in the peak of winter, if you've got a due north facing back deck that's not covered, you're going to be hot out there in the middle of the day. So really, I'll double down on Chayse's comment about west. You just want to know where west is, and you just want to understand how that's going to affect you for December, January and February, because it is pretty stinky out there for that sort of 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock every afternoon. If you've got living areas or kids' bedrooms that are just getting smashed by that western sun.
Yep, for sure. Okay, next one's going to be a bit of a tick box, like snapshot. Check the meter box. Poke your nose in there. Can you see a termite management sticker in there? If you don't, that's fine. It just is a follow-up question that you're going to chase up with the agent moving forward. Gas. Can you see if it's natural gas or whether it's bottled gas? What are the size of the gas bottles? Again, you're just looking at potentially how does the future look?
Mhm.
Am I having to replace gas bottles regularly because they're using small bottles? Is it able to take big bottles? That sort of stuff. Poke your nose underneath the house into the undercroft. What was the access like? Was it easy enough to get under there? Could you store things under there? If someone needed to go under there to do repair works, are they able to get under there easy enough? You just want to be looking. For me, I look at a lot of the plumbing under there. For the average punter, if you can identify the type of water pipes that are under there, again, this is not the end of the world, and there'll be more of this when we get into the house. But water pipes are typically either run in plastics, in copper, or in galvanized steel. Galvanized steel was the way they did things back in the good old days, and they rust from the inside out. So they look great from the outside, but they're actually rusting slowly from the inside. And it's just until they become just a pinprick. You'll notice it with the water pressure. When the water pressure starts to go, it typically means that your galvanized steel pipes are rusting from the inside out. It's an easy replacement, but it comes at a cost.
For sure.
If those works have already been done, great. One less thing for you to worry about. Identify where the hot water system is. Again, check the date that it was built and installed. There's a sticker on the side. For the most part, the big storage hot water systems can last 12 to 15 years. I won't go into too much detail about brands and stuff like that, but those that have seen me will know.
Good Aussie brand.
It's like, gotta get a ream. That's good stuff. Again, just building a picture. You're building a full profile of this home. Be like, okay, well, that system was 15-year-old. Like it's good. It's working now, but it's probably a cost that's coming in the next 2 to 3 years. If you've got one of the wall-mounted instantaneous gas hot water systems, those last a lot longer. They can last, potentially 20 years plus. So again, a snapshot. You are now a hot water system expert after the last 45 seconds of me rambling while you've got your head underneath the house. You're not a qualified builder, neither am I. We're not building inspectors, but we can both look at the stumps of a house and just see whether we've got that concrete cancer, whether they're blowing out, whether we've got timber stumps in there, which, are old telephone poles that have just been...
How many wedges are between the foundations of the property itself and the stumps? Like, it's very easy to spot obvious issues. I think and this is a building and pest inspector is just an insured version of us, right? Well, they'll go around and they'll say to you, pretty sure that's okay. They won't say to you it's good. They won't say to you it's bad. They'll say, we're pretty sure that's not okay, or we're pretty sure it is okay. And you've got to make a potentially couple of $1 million decision off the back of that. Have a look yourself first. Know if you want to go through that expense. Like, if a stump is, to quote one of our clients at the moment, on the piss, it's very obvious, right? You'll feel it when we get inside the house. You'll feel if the house is a bit wonky. Go and have a look at the stumps again. Are they concrete? Are they timber? Are they steel? Steel's good. Concrete is what it is. Some of it is good. Some of it isn't good. It's very obvious to tell when it isn't good because it'll have big cracks or actual chunks missing that have like exploded out from it. Doesn't mean the house is going to fall over. Does mean that it will need to be actively managed.
Monitored.
100%.
I mean, I was under a house the other week and I was actually a little bit worried under there. Do you remember the video I'm sending through? And I was like, I'm pretty sure this thing is like chopped up on bricks. Like there was like stumps everywhere that were just being like chopped up by enormous bricks. And I was like, this is like one big push away from just falling over. I should probably just get out of here. Cease video.
And he puffs.
Exactly. Okay, stop the video there. Okay, we have now completed the outside and undercroft of the house. We're now going inside. Get inside. Ignore the beautifully staged furniture. Look beyond it. You need to be taking in these spaces in their entirety as if there was nothing there or you were moving all of your random crap into that house. Road noise and train noise is a really important thing to identify as well. You'll probably get a sense for it when you're out on the street. But when you get inside the house, if you have an agent that cranks music at an open home, it generally is because they're trying to hide something.
It is not for the vibes.
Yeah, no need. Guys, can we turn that down? Sure. Just so you want to like understand what with door open or windows open or vice versa closed and everything shut up, what that road noise is. And because that's real life. You're the one that's going to have to sleep there. So getting a sense for road noise, train noise. I know we can't just cue the trains every single time, but bonus points if the train does roll past and you're like, oh, might want to check that train schedule because this could be an every 15-minute event at this house. Like harboring back to aspect and light, now that we're in the house, again, get the watch out, the Apple Watch, the compass. You get a little compass on a necklace or something, like really like
That's a
gangster.
power move. You got a tape measure. I got a compass.
A compass around my neck like I'm Flavor Flay. Just like checking that as I walk around the house. It's more about, in this case, light.
Yeah.
You know, like looking up, yes, okay, cool. They fitted down lights throughout. That's cool.
And all those lights are on in the middle of the day
Mm-hmm.
or at 10:15 to 10:45 a.m. Turn them off. Like I think we say this in the book, and we said this to all of our clients. Like we almost pretend we are our children when we're doing this part of the house. We are turning lights on and off. We're closing and opening every door multiple times, even bedroom doors. I closed a bedroom door at a private off-market inspection 2 weeks ago and did not know that the door was broken and we couldn't open the door again.
Yeah.
And the agent's like, what happened there? He calls the seller. She's like, oh yeah, that door's broken. Oh, we'll just get someone to fix it. It's fine. It happens all the time. Right? But we are there making sure that, hey, if the stump's going back to the outside again, if there's a crooked stump, the door won't close properly. It'll feel tough. That sort of stuff lets you know, is the house probably okay? Or is there stuff that you might want to ask a few more questions about? So turn the lights off. It's a weird thing to do at an open home. Trust me. But you turn the lights off, everyone else in that living room looks at you like, what the are you
For
doing?
sure. And like you say, it might feel weird, or you might feel a little bit like, oh, I don't want to be the person that is opening and closing all the doors, or, you know, as we get to the wet spaces, turning on and off all the showers and, you know, flushing the toilet. But everyone else in that house
They're gonna be
wants to be that person as well.
100%.
They're just like, oh, I'm so glad they did it. Do it. It's worth it. Like, I'm talking like for half an hour of potentially, you know,
The rest of
making
your life.
yourself feel silly. You're saving yourself like all the surprises
Yeah.
that could come about in the very early days of, like, you know, really letting the air out of a balloon for a new purchase.
Or you are just building so much more confidence in that property versus everybody else that when it comes to that best and finals, when it comes to auction day, you actually buy it because you know that all the doors close properly and you know that that house is full of natural light with all the lights off, and you know that it is quiet when you close the front door and the back door, right? So do it. Like, park the feeling of embarrassment. It is only you. No one else will notice unless we're there, and then we'll high five you.
Yeah, nice.
Unless we're not doing it already.
Yeah.
It just is the most sensible, yes, it's a bit weird, but it is the most sensible thing to do if you're going to make a purchase decision.
Yep.
Right? You want to know if it works for you at all times, not just if it works for you at this perfectly curated half an hour of time.
Yeah, I can't listen to this, like these vibey tunes all day, every day, 24 hours a day to drum out the road noise.
Yeah.
What is my life actually going to be like in this space?
Power is expensive. Unless you have solar power, you don't have your lights on all day, and you shouldn't have your lights on all day in Brisbane. We have enough natural light, even on an overcast day, that if the house is somewhat thought through and you're not living on top of your neighbours and there's not just 2 minutes next to their window and your window, you should be able to live like that. You should know about that before you decide to make an offer or walk away.
For sure. Elevation, breezes, all that kind of stuff. You know, is there fly screens? Is there security screens? Like, am I able to sort of have this house open without having, you know, Jumanji bug experience coming through the house? That's all important stuff to identify as well. The reason why I talk through an inspection is because I like to just sort of like stamp each room as I come through. And it's just almost, particularly for bedrooms, if we're talking size and what would fit in the room, I walk into the room and I say, that is a queen size bed, or that's a double bed. There's enough room on either side for bedside tables. You can still open the built-ins with it in there. Yep, there's an air conditioning unit in here. There's a fan in here.
I think
out we go.
it feels almost overkill to talk about that, but if you're listening to this and you're buying a house with kids and there's no fan and no aircon in their rooms, that is an immediate expense that you want to put in. With same conversation last night with a couple. It's like, we kind of know what to look for because we both have young kids, and you wouldn't put a kid in any room in the middle of a Brisbane summer unless it at least had a fan, but ideally had air conditioning as well. Otherwise your kid's just not going to sleep, and that is the best expense you can possibly have, is giving your kids a good night's sleep, because there's a high chance you might get one too.
Second best investment having kids is a TV. And the common like trope of real estate staging is to get rid of the TV and put a picture.
Oh yeah.
Put like a bit of art where the TV would typically go, or maybe not where the TV would typically go. Have a couple of couches that face each other, like they're having like a scissors, paper, rock tournament or something, or like a chess tournament. That's not the way life goes.
Hell no.
Think about, where does my TV go?
Yeah, where are you
Would
going
it
to point your
fit?
furniture?
And where does the couch go?
Yeah.
Like, I know, like, hey guys, we shouldn't all just think about our lives revolving around TV, but sometimes life does revolve around the TV. And making sure that your furniture can be positioned in a way that you can still move around the home without it being an obstruction, and that there's actually is a place where the TV can go, is important, because, like we say, these homes are curated and staged in a way to make you feel something in the moment, but that feeling might not be practicality and, TV centric. So keep that in mind. Where does the TV go? Where does my couch go? And, in the kitchen, visibility to the backyard. And I know this is probably like speaking to parents for the most part, but it's something that we're conscious of. Both of us have young kids. Spend a lot of time either cleaning up from the kids or preparing the next snack for the kids. I like to be able to see where they are, whether it's on the deck or out to the backyard. Just having that visibility from the heart of the home, the kitchen, is important. Or it may not be important to you, but again, just another thing to add to the list.
It's where, as a family, even if you're not in a position, if you're listening to this and you haven't started your family yet, it's then where most people at your property, whether it's just the two of you, whether it's just one of you, whether it's you and your friends and your family, it's where people congregate the most, is that kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
So making sure that it is well positioned, that it has access to that natural light, that you can, if needed, yell to someone in the living room or in the backyard, right, is really important. I'm not saying probably we don't stand in open homes yelling to each other through the house to see if we can hear, but
that's just my regular voice.
Getting a sense for that makes a lot of sense. The other thing in a kitchen as well, like, it's a workspace for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want it to feel cramped, and you want to be able to know that you can get from the fridge to the sink to the stove relatively easily, right? Or you can have more than one person.
Love that. That's the one I always think of, is like, hey, could two people move around here? Could one person be chopping up onions while the other person potentially is putting stuff in the dishwasher? Having those sort of 900 to a meter gaps between said maybe islands and side benches is just something to, again, snapshot and be like, okay, cool. Yeah, this feels like two people could be in here comfortably.
Yeah.
We could have friends sitting on the other side of the island, and this space feels like we could entertain here while still doing the practical things.
And if it's not that kitchen now, but you think it could be, where would that stuff go? So if you're buying a fixer-up, or you're buying that quintessential post-war home in Brisbane that you're going to make your own over time, is the functionality of that floor plan now, maybe with the reduction of one wall or something, does that allow for you to have that kitchen bench? And can you see that in your mind? On video, can you be like, this is where I think we put the bench?
Yep.
And we'd knock this wall out, and that would open up the living area. And then all we'd have to do is a couple of bifolds and put a deck on. And we've kind of got the next 10 to 15 years of a house, and we can figure the rest out.
You're speaking it into happening. And
For sure.
again, by speaking it, or even just giving yourself a little voice note as you're walking around, means that those thoughts can come back later on, and you can refer back to the floor plan and be like, okay, cool, yeah, that does make sense to delete that wall. While we're in the kitchen, good opportunity to check water pressure. This is probably the most famous, Chayse happy buyers trope is the turning the hot water on. What's the water pressure like, and how quick does the hot water kick in? You've got to keep in mind, some of these properties are vacant. The system, like, no one's run the water in 3 weeks, so you've got to give it a little bit of grace. But understanding that if it's a home that's clearly got owners still living there, and the hot water's taking 45 seconds to kick in, it's like, maybe the hot water system's on the way out.
What do my pipes look like? What do my hot water system look
Sure,
like?
it's just the next question, and how you can understand that. Check silicon. Again, just for any holes. Again, this is not rocket science. Again, if you can see that it's falling apart, or there's lots of mold, or there's grout that's starting to get quite deep, the grout's worn away, that's going to be potentially a waterproofing issue. Where does that water go? Is there a second story of the house that's going to end up getting that water falling on top of it? Again, just keep it in mind, identify it. Walking down the hallway, check the storage. If you haven't got lots of storage underneath the house, you have lots of storage in the house. Is there built-ins in all the bedrooms? Where's all your stuff going to go? It's important. Stick your arm in there. Is it an arm's depth? We love an arm's depth, linen cupboard.
It makes a big difference. It means if you do only have one linen cupboard, and it's that typical sort of older, just double door, if you've got more than, call it 300 mil of depth, you probably can fit a 4-person family worth of sheets and towels in there. And it means you don't have to stick them in your kids' drawers, or worse, you don't have to have them in your built-ins, because maybe we do at our house.
Oh, no. Didn't do the arm check.
You learn things on this job.
That's it. There are 3 videos: the streetscape, the outside, and the inside.
Yeah.
Okay. Once you've finished your video, stop the video and just
a moment.
Breathe it in. Yep. That's it. You got to just take that moment. Yeah, we get rushed on a Saturday. Yes, you will indeed get rushed as well on a Saturday, getting around to lots of different open homes. But the last thing you want to do is to just get a feeling for that home and just be like, okay, cool. Could we see ourselves living here? Could I sit in this living room? Could I sit on that deck? Could I prepare a meal in that kitchen? That's the last thing. Make a little note. Bugger off. You got another open home to get to.
On that note of like, could I see myself living there? There's absolutely nothing wrong with sitting on a couch or pulling a deck chair on the outdoor table out and sitting down on it. We were at a place in Carindale a couple of weeks ago, and the view when you were standing on the deck was of your neighbour's roof. When you sat on the deck, all you could see was treetops.
Yeah.
And it was just such a different experience sitting than it was to standing. And I would say for 80% of your life on that deck ongoing, you're going to be sitting, and it was so much nicer. So give yourself the opportunity to actually, maybe don't lie in other people's beds, but sit on the couch, have a look around, sit on the back deck, have a look around, go out to the pool area and don't just walk around it. If there's pool furniture, sit on it, see what the house actually looks like from an angle of someone who might own it, and build confidence to pursue it or build confidence to walk away.
Yep. This might have been a 30-minute podcast, but rest assured, if you're doing this in the flesh, this is about a 7 to 8 minute process. You'll get better and better at it, and you'll get more and more confident doing it, and it will come with better decisions off the back of it. So thanks for your patience, everyone. He's Sam. I'm Chase. Cue the song.